you that the Lord Jesus, on the night when he was betrayed, took bread, and when he had given thanks, he broke it and said, "This is my body, which is for you. Do this in remembrance of me." In the same way, also the cup after supper. "This cup is the new covenant in my blood. Do this as often as you drink it in remembrance of me. For as often as you eat this bread and drink the cup, you proclaim the Lord's death until he comes." Amen.
And our second reading. Now before the festival of Passover, Jesus knew that his hour had come to depart from this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. The devil had already put it into the heart of Judas, son of Simon Iscariot, to betray him. And during supper, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he had come from God and was going to God, got up from the table, took off his outer robe, and tied a towel around himself. Then he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with the towel that was tied around him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus answered, "You do not know now what I am doing, but later you will understand." Peter said to him, "You will never wash my feet." Jesus answered, "Unless I wash you, you have no share with me." Simon Peter said to him, "Lord, not my feet only, but also my hands and my head." Jesus said to him, "One who has bathed does not need to wash except the feet, but is entirely clean. And you are clean, though not all of you." For he knew who was to betray him. For this reason he said, "Not all of you are clean." After he had washed their feet, had put on his robe, and had returned to the table, he said to them, "Do you know what I have done to you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, for that is what I am. So if I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have set you an example, that you also should do as I have done to you. Very truly I tell you, servants are not greater than their master, nor are messengers greater than the one who sent them. If you know these things, you are blessed if you do them." When he had gone out, Jesus said, "Now the Son of Man has been glorified, and God has been glorified in him. If God has been glorified in him, God will also glorify him in himself, and will glorify him at once. Little children, I am with you only a little longer. You will look for me. And as I said to the Jews, so now I say to you, where I am going, you cannot come. I give you a new commandment, that you love one another, just as I have loved you. You also should love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another." The good news of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God.
Please pray with me. Gracious and loving God, may these words of my mouth and this meditation from my heart be filled with your spirit and filled with your truth. And may it be heard with open ears and open hearts and open minds. And bring us a message that we need to hear for our lives today, for our world today, for our church today, and for your eternal kingdom. Amen. Every year when Maundy Thursday rolls around, my very funny, very clever little sister and I share a very funny, very clever little joke. We don't say Maundy, Thursday to one another. Instead, we sing it. For example, Jane, what are you doing tonight? Why, Nancy, I'm going to church. Why? Monday, Thursday, da, da, da. And what are you doing now? Well, Nancy, I'm working on my sermon. About what? Monday, Thursday, da, 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 da. In fact, I was even talking to my sister today on the phone, and she's so excited about the Mueller report being fully revealed. She's like, oh, I'm going to be in front of the TV all day. Nancy, you should be going to church. Why? Monday, Thursday, da, 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 da. Now, I know that probably seems really irreverent for me to be bringing in some popular 1960s Mama and Papa's pop song that no matter what, you can't help snap your fingers and swing when you sing it, into this very holy event in this very, very holy week. I know, probably you think, oh, that Jane, lightning's going to strike any moment now. Hold on your hat. Well, you know, actually, I decided to take this little clever little joke seriously. And I decided to take a look at what this song is really saying. And perhaps there's more than meets the ear, or eye, or finger snap, or sway, whatever it might be. You know, if we think about the first verse of the song, and turn it from Monday, Monday to Maundy, Thursday, it would go like this. Monday, Thursday, so good to me. Maundy, Thursday, it was all I dreamed it could be. But Monday morning couldn't guarantee that Monday evening you would still be here with me. I mean, really, that's what happened on this day 2,000 years ago, right? Jesus had invited his disciples, his closest friends, to come and share in a Seder meal. This would be the launch of Passover, and you may know that Seder dinners are really fun, celebratory events. We sort of eat the story, and you have all the symbolic foods, and you drink a lot of wine, and you have a really good time as you remember God freeing the slaves in Egypt and walking through with them across the wilderness to the promised land. They were looking forward to a really great night. And in the middle of it all, Jesus says, I'm going to take this experience and add something to it, add something important. And so he then broke some bread and he said, and blessed it, and he said, as you take this blessed bread, it will become my body, which is given for you. And then he takes a cup and he asks God to bless it, and he says, now this cup is my blood, this is given for you. And every time you do this, you'll experience my presence in a very special way. But we know, if we're familiar with this story, that what happens next is that Jesus is going to be arrested. And he's going to be accused and convicted and go to the cross where he will die. This is going to be the last time his disciples are going to see him, in the flesh anyway. So it's true, Monday morning couldn't guarantee that Monday evening Jesus would still be with them when the evening came to a close. The second verse of the song shares the fear and the shock that comes with suddenly losing somebody that you had expected to be there. When the song continues, Monday morning, you gave me no warning of what was to be. And you know, when you think about it, the disciples probably had no idea what was going to be happening as they took this meal and then joined Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane as he asked them to, where he would go off and pray into the night with every fiber of his being for the courage to say yes to what God wanted him to do next. Meet the cross and meet the horrible death on the cross. get a sense that the disciples have any idea that's going to happen. They don't say anything when they're taking this meal about why Jesus would be wanting to be with them in some sort of mystical way. They don't protest. They don't ask a lot of questions like they sometimes do. And then when they're out in the garden, Jesus asks them to stay awake, but we know that they fall asleep. Could be because Seder dinners have a lot of wine, and no matter how much they want to stay awake, they can't, or it's very late. But you know, chances are if they knew something bad was going to happen, their adrenaline would be going, and they would be awake and be ready for something scary that's about to happen. And they weren't. So you get a sense that they were quite blindsided when suddenly these Roman soldiers come up and take Jesus, bind his hands, and he disappears into the night, never to be seen again. In the song, the third part of the song is a sort of bridge, where the singers go on about saying how every other day of the week is fine, but when Monday comes, whenever Monday comes, you're going to find me crying all of the time. The suggestion here is that every time the day comes back where Jesus suddenly disappeared, there's this explosion of sadness, this explosion of grief. And it makes me wonder if maybe those first disciples, those first years that they came together to share in this meal, this holy meal, also experienced a lot of grief in addition to whatever else they were supposed to feel. I mean, sure, they're supposed to know that Jesus is with them in this mystical way, and they're not to grieve because he rose from the dead and he's with them always. But we know that when somebody is taken from us, especially when it's immediate, we didn't expect it, it's really hard to let go. And it's messy, and it's confusing, and it's exhausting, and it takes a lot of time to work through those deep and difficult moments and times. And perhaps that's what it was like for the disciples. And as time went on, the grief dissipated, and as we move on, we forget about that experience of grief that the disciples must have had. But maybe tonight, it's helpful for us to remember that grief is really a part of what happened to the groups and what's about to happen after this meal. And we can let the song kind of help us remember that fact. The song ends in a kind of sense of hopelessness, that the grief will never change. The song ends with them singing, Monday, Monday, can't trust that day. Monday, Monday, won't go away. Monday, Monday, it's here to stay. We can ask ourselves, is that what Maundy Thursday is about? Is it about grief that's here to stay, or that should be here to stay? Well, I think as I continued to listen to this song, I was given a lot of comfort in the fact that the title repeats the word Monday, 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 and if we change it in our little clever way to say Maundy, Maundy, we can say to ourselves, this song is reminding us twice that this day is about Maundy, Maundy. And what is Maundy? Well, Maundy comes, and why was it called Maundy Thursday? Well, it's because the word Maundy comes from the word mandate. It's the Latin word for mandatum, mandate, a commandment. As we heard Jeremy talk about in the second reading that we heard tonight, the second part of what we think about, what we remember about Maundy Thursday. When Jesus gave his disciples a new commandment, to love one another as he has loved them. It's a little different from the way Jesus taught his disciples earlier in his ministry, that they have two commandments, one to love God above else, and one to love their neighbor as themselves. This is a little different. This is, don't love your neighbor like you love yourself. Because let's face it, most of us don't love ourselves very well. Jesus says, no, love your neighbor as I have loved you. And the example that he provides is this experience of washing their feet, which is an exercise of, when you think about it, what's involved with that? Well, it's about truly humbling yourself nobody had to see, but it's part of the journey, and you need help. That's the way that God, Jesus, commands us to be with one another, caring for one another humbly, truly engaging in a vulnerable, intimate way, and being willing to knock off gunk, to have our gunk knocked off by our neighbor, our Christian brother or sister, whoever that might be. Because so often when we come together as community around the table or wherever we might be, we may be doing that, missing someone who was part of this community until they were suddenly taken from us. We may be coming to the table tonight, surrounded by neighbors of people we love, but maybe there's one person that we truly loved that isn't there with us tonight. And it's an opportunity, it's an experience, a challenge to not feel that grief. Perhaps for us Methodists, we've come together knowing that we are not the denomination that we were last year. Things have changed. And there is grief in that. And yet the good news is there's also a lot of love, a lot of unconditional, vulnerable love that we're invited to give and to receive from one another. And to know that having that experience of the mystical Christ coming amongst us and loving us in this way, even if it's not in the way that we really want, the way that we had it before, it is enough. It is what we need for this moment. And it'll be there in the next moment as we say yes to that Christ community. And that we can count on that love coming and being given and shared with one another every step of the way as we go on our journey through our wilderness to our cross and beyond. And you know what's really interesting is that as I looked at what the album cover of Monday is, it looks a lot like